Hi, I'm Friedemann Findeisen from Holistic Songwriting, and this is Bridge the Atlantic.
Hey, how's everyone doing? For Bridge the Atlantic, I am singer-songwriter Marcio from Canada.
And I'm music web designer Ross Barber-Smith from Scotland.
And you're watching Encore, a show featuring advice for musicians from the industry's finest. If you're new here, subscribe.
Today we're joined by Friedemann Findeisen from Germany, an award-winning songwriter and producer and founder of Holistic Songwriting, the most complete collection of commercial songwriting techniques on the web.
That's right. So, Friedemann, something that often affects songwriters like myself is writer's block, the dreaded writer's block. Do you have any tips for powering through those dry spells?
There's a bunch of things you can do, actually. So first of all, I think first things first is dispelling that word writer's block from your mind. I think it really doesn't help. If you put a label on it, you make it real. It becomes a thing. So for me, it really helps to say, like, there is no writer's block. You just you're just tired, whatever. Tomorrow you're going to write again. Second thing is, if you have a deadline, that always helps. I've always made my deadlines, even if I had real trouble with it. There's this thing called, what's that called? Parkinson's law? Parkinson's law. Jesus. We should probably put that down as a timestamp as well.
There we go.
Parkinson's law, which is that the time allotted for a specific activity, the more it decreases, the quicker you're going to get done, or something like that. Like the last time you have for something, essentially, the quicker you're going to get it done.
Right.
So if you say, like, I'm only going to have 1 hour to finish the song, then you will finish it in that hour. When it comes to motivation, when you're feeling like, I don't know if I really want to write songs today, and if you're really lacking that enthusiasm about it, which I think is crucial to writing great songs, there's two things that help me. The first thing is writing, just forcing yourself through it until you get to a point where it's actually fun. And the second part is learning something new. So I have one of my favorite books is Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss. It's a collection of interviews where I think it's the same 10 or 11 questions that he asks these celebrities, and they're really interesting, and it always motivates me when I read it. Another one is, so Tools of Titans was one, the other one is Tribe of Mentors by the same author, Tim Ferriss, with 2 S and 2 R's, which is also interviews, but with different questions, essentially. And that always gets me in the right mindset to be like, oh yeah, I want to get productive again. And learning in general, I feel really, really helps if you're down in the dumps, if you don't know where to go. Having someone tell you, like, having someone tell you a great new technique or a great new mindset that you haven't previously thought about really helps to, like, reset your mind and to get into that mode again. And I think any kind of learning is useful, and I learn everything that I want to learn. So if I'm enthusiastic about something, I'm going to learn everything there is to know about that one thing, even if it's something that has nothing to do with music or my other jobs, because I think everything matters. Everything you learn will eventually play into your songwriting. Because what is songwriting if not, writing down your experiences in life, essentially? And if you, one more tip, if you don't know what to learn, start with learning. Learning how to learn is an incredibly useful skill, because it makes everything else a lot quicker.
You're doing just that. It doesn't surprise me that you're inspired by the books that you're reading. Because that's what you're doing with your channel. That's what I feel like you're doing. You're inspiring me, man, to get back out there and just keep writing. I often go through dry spells after a very long creative burst. So, for example, if I'm working on an album, I give it, obviously you're writing leading up to the album for a very long time. And then I personally just put everything I have into the album. And I often have a very long, months long, sometimes even a year going, maybe writing 1 or 2 songs, which is very low for me, someone who used to write a song a day pretty much. Have you ever experienced that? Is there anything to be said about that? Like a metaphorical well that you're draining that you have to refill with self-care or,
First of all, it's completely normal. And I have had pretty much of a dry spell lately as well. But I want to get back into it. Next week, I'm starting with writing again every day. So I'm just setting myself that schedule. I know next week I'm going to start again. And every day I'm going to write a couple of hours. So, because I've learned a while ago that you're only a songwriter if you write. So I have to get back into it. Other's I can't.
Otherwise, you used to be a songwriter.
Exactly. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah,
I think it's really important to really keep writing is crucial, I think.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that for me as well. If I force myself to write, sometimes I get discouraged because maybe it's not the greatest thing. But the thing is, sometimes I need to write those 20 songs to get that one that's the one, and it's so obvious to me once it happens. I've told Ross before, I don't know if you can relate to this, but you can write an okay song and you think, oh, that's an okay song. But when you write that right one, you just know it. Just something just feels different, and you don't really know it with the other ones. You think they're good, but it's when that one hits and it just hits just right. And there's just something special about that. But I think that you can't. You got to keep writing. So yeah. You're telling me what I need to be reminded of right now, personally, and I'm sure anyone tuning into this right now, keep writing. Go, just don't use dry spells as an excuse, right? You just get there and write. Or there is something to be said about taking a small amount of time to maybe recuperate or whatever you got to do. But
I don't know about
maybe
that.
not.
Actually.
Okay,
I don't know.
This,
I think
please.
even if you just finished a big project, I think you still should be writing, because the less you write, I think the more you get out of it as well.
Yes.
I recently read On Writing, I think that's what it's called, by Stephen King.
I've been meaning to read that for so long. I'm writing that down.
It's a sort of autobiography / how to write well. But it's very interesting. And one of the things he says, I once gave an interview that has really become really popular, because the interviewer asked me, how often do you write? And he said, I write every day except on my birthday. And in the book, he says, it's actually kind of was a lie, because of course I do write on my birthday as well. And I found that very inspirational.
Well, that's the thing. People ask, how the hell can Stephen King churn out as many books as he can? But I think, doesn't he write a certain amount of time, right? Like,
is it 4 hours or something? I think it's at least 4 hours a day.
I think it was something.
I think he has a magic number. I think it's 3,000 words that he writes every day. I think. That's
okay, so there's that. And which relates to something else you said, which I want to reiterate a little bit, is the idea of giving yourself a schedule. That's worked really well for me in the past, and I think you're right. And especially as a perfectionist, I consider myself a perfectionist. I think if we don't have a deadline, it'll just keep going. And even when I was in school, I was the one that was doing an essay the night before, which I knew I had a whole month to do it, but I do really well on it if I really. Because I had to, you know what I mean? So I think having that schedule, I think that is so powerful. And that relates to one other thing you said I want to reiterate, which is really important. And you said doing more, well, I guess I'll say it in this way, doing more in less time. It's that idea of, you have this amount of time to do something, and you're going to do it. I think, is it Switzerland that has made their work hour days 6 hours instead of 8 hours? Is it Sweden?
I think it's Sweden.
Switzerland, Sweden, the Netherlands have all shortened down their work.
So anyways,
days,
that idea makes so much sense to me, because, I've actually brought down my work hours in the day, and I find that the less time I have to do something, the more diligent and disciplined I am to do it, because that's it. I can't go over it. There was a point where I was working late into the night. I'm a dad of 3. I mean, that's just stealing time away from my family, and my wife. So setting that time there, I think, has really worked for me. I'm not sure if that's something you do even with your videos or with your work. Is it very regimented for you to get something done in a certain amount of time? Besides songwriting,
and it really helps to define it as well, because one of the biggest risks is to live in the gray area, where you're while you're having free time, you're thinking about work, and the other way around, and that's not what should be happening. So for me personally, I sometimes just have a couple of days where I don't do anything, and then a couple of days where I work really, really hard. But what you said really resonates with me as well. Is I think it doesn't make sense to work hard that's really one of the biggest traps I think you can fall into in any profession, really. If you work hard, you're doing something wrong. One of my favorite quotes is, or one of my favorite mindsets that I keep reminding myself of if I feel like I'm working hard, is, what would this be like if it was easy? And so I think it's all about working smart, not hard. So really sitting down before you start working and thinking about, what are the things, what are the pressure points that I need to hit today? What are the core things I need to be doing to really get myself ahead? And then you start working once you know what those things are going to be. Because we do so much shit every day that doesn't contribute to our actual goal. And it's really, you can work an entire day, and at the end of it, what have you got to show for it,
Yes.
And it's the worst thing. It's
about
the worst
prioritizing
thing
too, right?
Exactly. It happens to every creative person.
Yeah, I use one of these, where I've got to get better at it, but where I really prioritize what I have to do. Now I've just got to make doing this a priority, and then we'll get somewhere.
And one more thing I want to mention in that is, so this is something I picked up in, what's it called? The 7 Habits of Highly Efficient or Successful. I think it's Highly Successful People by Stephen R. Covey. Is And this is something that blew my mind because I hadn't realized this. But so he has this grid essentially. On one axis it says urgent, not urgent, and the other axis says important, not important. And when I read that, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be super obvious. Obviously, you should only be doing the things that are urgent and important, clearly. But what he says, and this makes so much sense, is no, you should be focusing on the things that are not urgent and important. Those are the things that you should be doing every single day.
Because we never focus on those.
Right. That just completely blew my mind because those are the long-term things that you actually should be working on, you know? And so that's a really important point. I really hope a lot of people carry home from this. I guess they're listening to this at home, but you know what I mean.
Maybe they're not. Maybe they're walking home right now. They're
right,
carrying their phone with them.
Perfect.
Friedemann, this has just been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us from Germany and just sharing a plethora of information and inspiration with us today.
Absolutely. And if you want more from Bridge Atlantic, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you want to pick up one of our shirts, visit our website and use the coupon code BTAROCKS and you'll receive 20% off your order.
That's right. This episode was brought to you by Social Surge, your source for social media marketing and online music promotion. Check them out because they do what, Russ?
They keep the show alive. And if you would like to sponsor the show and become an official Bridger, join us on Patreon from as little as $1 per month. Not only will you be able to showcase your band or brand to our amazing audience, but your support will allow us to keep bringing you weekly videos here at Bridge the Atlantic.
That's right. All right. We'll see you next time, Ross. You ready to cover your camera? One, two, three, come
bye.
on.